Picture a bell. Not a church bell. Not the kind that rings for weddings or calls you to prayer or marks the turning of a safe ordinary hour. This bell is small enough to hold in one hand. A little brass clapper on a stick, or sometimes a wooden rattle, or a horn. Different shapes, different sounds, but all of them doing the same job. The job is to warn you that something is coming, to give you enough time to step off the road, to pull your children against your skirts, to turn your face and look at the wall and wait for the sound to pass. Because the person holding that bell is not allowed to come near you. They are not allowed to touch you or speak to you without first calling out their condition, or enter a tavern, or step into a church, or walk through a market, or drink from a public well, or stand upwind of a crowd, or go into a bathhouse, or share a meal with anyone who doesn't already have exactly what they have. What they have has been eating them alive since before you met them. It started maybe with a patch of skin that went numb, a whitish spot on the forearm or the cheek that the owner rubbed absently, thinking nothing of it. A finger that stopped feeling heat or cold. An eyebrow that fell out. Small things, easily ignored, and then not ignored anymore. Because this disease takes its time. It is patient in a way that very few diseases are. It does not rush. It does not burn through a body in 3 days the way plague does. It does not drown a person in their own fluids the way pneumonia does. It moves slowly, methodically, with the quiet confidence of something that knows it cannot be stopped. It works outward. From deep in the nerves, it travels toward the surface. It takes the feeling away first, which sounds like a mercy until you realize what that actually means. A person who cannot feel their hand does not notice when they burn it on a cooking pot, does not notice when a stone cuts their foot, does not notice when the damage accumulates. Infection by infection, wound by wound, until the flesh itself begins to fail, and then it begins to show. The skin thickens, the face changes shape, the nose collapses, the ears enlarge, the hands curl inward. Fingers shorten, not because they fall off, not exactly, but because the bones beneath reabsorb, shrink, dissolve from within, until what was once a hand is something else. Something that people in the medieval world called leonine, lion-faced, because the swollen features, the heavy brows, the broad distorted nose, the thick lips, they looked to medieval eyes like a lion's face, a human lion, rotting quietly, still walking, still breathing, still holding that little bell, that bell that is ringing right now on the road ahead of you. We're going back tonight, not to the court, not to the castle, not to any of the places you might have seen on a school trip poster. We're going to the place they built just outside the city walls, just far enough away that the healthy folk could feel safe, just close enough that the church could keep an eye on it. We're going to the Lazar house, and we're not going as visitors. We're living it. One life. One body, one diagnosis that will change everything about who you are allowed to be. I make these history stories, and honestly, if you're still awake right now, I don't know what to tell you. You're listening to a man describe medieval skin disease at whatever time it is where you are. Either you're genuinely fascinated by history, which I respect, or you've tried every sleep podcast in existence and this is your last option, which I also respect. Either way, get comfortable. Here we go. Your eyes are open. They shouldn't be. Not yet. The bells haven't rung prime. The sky beyond the unshuttered window of your family's house is still the colour of ash, that pre-dawn grey that belongs to nobody, neither night nor day, the colour of things that haven't decided what they are yet. The sky is that colour because you've been lying awake looking at it for the better part of 3 hours. You know why you are awake. Your left hand is tingling. No, not tingling. That would be normal. That would be the feeling of blood returning after sleeping on it wrong. That uncomfortable prickling that fades in 30 seconds. This is different. This is the absence of tingling. The absence of anything. Your left hand is lying on your chest and you cannot feel it there. You can feel the weight of it with your ribs. But when you bring your right hand across and press the thumb into the meat of your left palm, hard enough to leave a mark, you feel nothing. You've been pressing it on and off for 3 hours. Nothing. This isn't the first morning this has happened. You know that. You've been knowing it in the way you know things you aren't ready to say out loud for perhaps 6 weeks now. The numbness comes and goes. Sometimes it's the hand. Sometimes it's a patch on your left cheek, about the size of a coin, just below your ear, where the skin feels like it belongs to someone else. You touched your face in the market last week, rubbing at a smear of something, and Thomas the tanner's boy was watching you, and his expression did something. A small thing. He looked away too quickly, like he'd seen something he wasn't supposed to see. You haven't gone back to the market since. Outside, a rooster somewhere behind the house announces its opinion of the morning. The sky shifts half a shade toward blue. You put your left hand under the blanket and listen to your family breathe. Your mother on her pallet near the door, moving in the slow rhythms of deep sleep. Your younger sister curled tight beside her, a habit she hasn't given up since childhood, no matter how many times your mother tells her she's too old for it. Your father, on the far side of the room, snoring slightly, his big hands open beside him, like he's waiting for someone to put tools in them. You look at your own hands in the half-dark. The right one looks fine, normal. Your hands are the hands of someone who works with them. Calloused at the base of the fingers, rough around the knuckles, an old scar across the right thumb from a billhook that slipped 3 summers ago. Good hands, working hands. The left one looks exactly the same. It just doesn't feel like yours. You know what you have to do. You have known, the way you know things in that cold, still place behind your ribs, for weeks. There is a priest in this town who holds the examination, who calls in the bishop's physician when a case is suspected, who reads from the book and looks at the skin and makes the determination that determines everything. You know what the determination means if it goes one way. You've seen them on the road, you've heard the bell, you have, God forgive you, quickened your step and looked at the ground and waited until the sound passed. Now the bell might be yours. You lie in the dark and breathe, and press your right thumb into your left palm and feel nothing at all and wait for morning to come. The examination is held in the vestry of the parish church. You go alone. You told your mother you were going to help Robert at his workshop, which is true, you are usually there by this hour. But today you walk past the turning that leads to Robert's place and keep going straight, toward the grey stone bulk of St. Bartholomew's. The morning air is cold and sharp with the smell of early autumn. Wood smoke from households just starting their fires, damp earth, the faint sour smell of the tannery 2 streets east, which is always there, background music you've stopped noticing except on mornings like this when everything seems heightened and precise. Your footsteps on the packed earth are too loud, each one announcing itself. The church door is unlocked. It's always unlocked. The vestry is through a low arch on the north side, a small room with a flagstone floor and a single window. overlooking the churchyard. The room smells of tallow and damp wool and something medicinal, sharp and herbal, that you will later identify as oil of juniper used for cleaning wounds. Father Edmund is already there. He's perhaps 50, a lean man with a high forehead and careful eyes. A good priest, as far as you know. He has given you communion for most of your life. He married your parents. He said the words over your grandmother's grave. Right now he is looking at you the way no one should look at someone they have known since childhood. He is looking at you like a problem. Beside him stands a man you don't know. Older, shorter, with the particular air of someone who has spent a long time in rooms like this. His hands are clean in a way that takes effort to maintain. He wears a good wool coat, dark blue, and he carries a flat leather case that he sets on the table with careful deliberateness. The physician. "Come in," Father Edmund says. His voice is kind. That's almost worse. The examination takes a long time. It is thorough in ways you didn't expect. The physician speaks little but moves constantly, examining you with a focused attention that removes you, somehow, from the room. You become an object of study, a collection of surfaces to be assessed. He looks at your skin first, all of it. He asks you to remove your shirt and you stand in the cold vestry, with the stone floor under your bare feet and the window casting grey autumn light across your back and arms while he looks. You feel the cold. On the right side of your body you feel it clearly. The small, prickling, uncomfortable chill of stone under bare feet, the draught from the ill-fitting window, the roughness of the flagstone beneath your soles. On the left side there are patches where you feel less. He finds them without being told, touches them with one finger, asking without words, here, and here, and here. To the first two you say nothing, because you feel the touch, however dimly. To the third, a patch on your left calf about the size of his palm, you stay silent because you don't feel it at all. He makes a note. He looks at your face for a long time, at your eyebrows, your nose, the texture of your skin. He looks at your hands. He takes a thin metal implement from his case, a probe, a stylus, something delicate and purposeful, and touches it in sequence to your left palm. You watch him do it. You watch his face as he moves the probe, touching the flesh, waiting. His expression gives nothing away. You cannot feel the probe at all. He puts it away. He speaks to Father Edmund in Latin, quiet and rapid. You were never taught Latin. Your father knows a few words from the liturgy. Everyone does. But a sustained conversation in Latin moves too fast for any of it to catch. You watch their faces instead. Father Edmund nods once, slowly. He doesn't look at you while he nods. He looks at the window. That is when you know. What happens next is strange, in the way of things that are both expected and impossible at once. Father Edmund asks you to sit. You sit on the wooden bench against the wall, the cold of it coming up through your breeches. He sits across from you, and for a moment you are just two people in a small room, which is the last moment you will be that, exactly, ever again. "Do you understand what this means?" he asks. You tell him you think so. "I want to be sure you understand." He's gentle about it. You will remember that. He doesn't flinch away from the word. He says it clearly, with the careful precision of a man who has had to say it before and knows it doesn't help to soften it. He says, "Leprosy." And there it is. The room doesn't change. The light coming through the window doesn't change. The smell of tallow and juniper doesn't change. Your hands in your lap look exactly as they did an hour ago. but something has shifted, invisibly, in the way that things shift when a word is finally said out loud, like a stone dropped into still water. The ripples have barely reached the edge yet, but they're moving. You have leprosy, or rather, and this is the medieval distinction, and it matters enormously. You have been adjudged to have leprosy. The church makes this determination. The bishop's physician advises, but the church decides. The church has procedures for this. Procedures that are older, in some cases, than the building you're sitting in. You're 22 years old, you're not wealthy, you're not a noble. You work with your hands, have always worked with your hands, expect to work with your hands for the rest of your life. Your name is Thomas. Thomas of the village of Stow, son of William the carpenter, and now you have leprosy. Father Edmund is still talking. He's explaining what comes next. There will be a period of preparation, a week, perhaps 2. Time to settle your affairs, to tell your family, and then the ceremony. He says the word for the ceremony, and you don't fully hear the rest of what he's saying because you're thinking about what you already know of the ceremony. You have heard of it from others. Everyone has heard of it. The leper mass. The week that follows is the longest of your life. You tell your father that evening, just him, first. You wait until your mother and sister have gone up to bed, and you sit with your father by the dying fire and you tell him. He doesn't move for a long time. The fire settles, sending up a brief flutter of orange light that catches his face. He has your hands, the same broad knuckle, the same way of holding them when he's thinking, loose and open. He is looking at them now. How long? He says. It isn't really a question. I don't know. Weeks. Maybe more. I don't know how long it's been building. Another silence. Does it hurt? You want to say, that's not how it works. You want to explain about the nerves, what the physician explained to you in abbreviated, careful, Latin-accented terms. But what comes out is, not yet. Your father puts his hand over yours, the right one. He holds it for a moment and you feel the dry warmth of it, the roughness, the familiar weight. Then he says, I'll speak to Father Edmund about the house. He means the small portion of house and land that would have been yours. The modest inheritance that defines the boundary of your family's modest ambitions. He means it won't come to you now. Because in the eyes of the law, after the ceremony, you won't exist to inherit anything, you nod. He doesn't let go of your hand. You sit there until the fire goes completely out. The morning after, your mother. You had thought she might weep. Instead, she becomes very still and very busy in the way she gets when something is too large to process standing still. She begins rearranging things, moving the water jug from the shelf to the table and back, straightening her dresses on their pegs. Your sister, who is 16 and quick, and has never been told anything about any of this directly, comes in from the yard and reads the room in about 4 seconds and goes very quiet. How long until? Your mother starts. A week. 2 weeks. Then you'll be at St. Giles. St. Giles, the Lazar house outside town. You have walked past it on the East Road perhaps 100 times in your life. A collection of low buildings within a low wall. A chapel with a plain wooden cross. Figures in the yard sometimes, moving slowly, always at a distance. You never looked too closely. You always walked faster. Yes, you say. St. Giles. Your mother goes back to rearranging the jug. Your sister stands in the doorway for a moment, and then comes across the room and puts her arms around you, and presses her face against your shoulder, and does not say anything at all. You stand there with your arm around her and feel the warmth of her and think, after the ceremony, this will be the last time. This specific kind of contact, someone you love simply reaching for you without procedure, without the formal distance the world will shortly require you to maintain. You hold her tighter than you usually would. The days move slowly and with terrible clarity. You notice things you never noticed. The way your mother's hands look in the morning light when she is working the bread dough, the cords of tendon moving under the skin, the old flower burn on her right wrist she's carried since you were small, the particular sound your father's tools make in the workshop out back, the methodical rhythm of the plane against wood, your sister's laugh, which is too loud for her size, which fills every room she's in. You eat the meals your mother makes, and you taste them with attention. You walk the streets of the town you've lived in your entire life, and you look at everything. The market cross, the mill by the river, the baker's house with the carved beam over the door, the street where you and your friends used to race in summer, barefoot on warm dust. You're not allowed to tell people, not yet, not until after the ceremony. Father Edmund was clear about this. If word gets out prematurely, things can go badly. There are places in England where people with leprosy have been driven from their homes with violence, before any official process, by neighbours who decided not to wait for the church. So you walk through your town and you look at everything with the knowledge that sits in your chest like a stone. And the people you pass say, "Good morning, Thomas," and you say good morning back, and none of them know. And you walk a little further, and you take note of the smell of the baker's chimney, and the mud on the high street, and the particular quality of October light, the way it goes gold, and then goes amber, and then goes grey with brutal efficiency. You are memorising it. Not consciously. You're not standing at street corners thinking, "I will remember this." It is more involuntary than that, more bodily, like the way your lungs keep breathing when you've stopped thinking about breathing. You're trying to keep it. On the fourth day you go back to Robert's workshop. Robert is a glover. You've been his apprentice for 2 years, learning the slow and particular skill of transforming animal hide into the soft, precise object that is a good glove. You like the work. It is skilled in ways that are not immediately obvious. The cutting of the pattern, the stitching, the understanding of where the hide will stretch and where it will hold, the difference between a glove that fits like a second skin and a glove that merely functions. Robert is a short, broad man with very blue eyes and hands that move with a speed and certainty that you've spent 2 years trying to match. He looks up when you come in, looks at your face, does not say what he's reading there. "The Falstaff order," he says instead, "the buff pair. I need the seam redone on the thumb gusset. Come and look." You come and look. You stand at the wide table in the workshop that smells of leather and sizing and the particular dry dustiness of fine ground chalk, and you look at the glove he's holding up, and you look at the thumb gusset, and yes, the seam is slightly off, the leather puckered at the join. "Soaked through the back stitch," you say. You pick up the glove. Feel the leather in your right hand. Buttery soft, the Falstaff family always orders the best, and your left. You can feel it with your right, but in the left hand there is that now familiar blankness, the absence of information. You set it down, pick up the awl, begin working. Robert works beside you in silence for a while. Outside, the town goes about its business. A cart on the cobbles, a dog barking twice and stopping, the smell of bread from somewhere close. Then Robert says, without looking up from his own work, "You'll be going to St. Giles. not a question. Yes. He's quiet for a moment. His hands don't stop moving. Who told you, you ask? Nobody. I've got eyes. A pause. How long have you known? A few weeks. He nods, works in silence. Will you be able to work there? He asks eventually. At the Lazar house. He hadn't thought about this clearly. I think so. I think there's work to be done. In the house. In the garden. I'll send tools, Robert says. Not mine. I'll get a second set for there. You look at him. Nothing fancy, he says, not looking at you. Just the basics. Awl and needle and thread. Something to do with your hands. His own hands are still moving, stitching with the flat, careful strokes you've watched for 2 years. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. He says it without heat. I will. You work beside him for the rest of the morning. Just that. The two of you at the wide table, the leather and the tools, the familiar smell of the workshop, the sound of the town outside, the October light coming in at the low window and moving slowly across the floor. It is one of the best mornings of your life. You understand that while it is happening. The night before the ceremony, you don't sleep. You lie on your pallet with the blanket up to your chin, and you stare at the ceiling joists, and you listen to your family breathe, and you stay very still, as if stillness might slow things down. Tomorrow morning you will walk to the church. You will go into the church and the Mass will be said for you. The Mass that is said for the dying, for the dead. Except you will be standing there alive while it is said. After the Mass, the priest will place earth, actual earth, churchyard earth, grave earth, on your head as a symbol. You will wear black, the way the dead are dressed. Then there will be a list of things you're no longer permitted to do. You have heard this list, in parts, from different sources. You know some of what's on it, and afterwards you will be taken to St. Giles, and the gates will close behind you, and that will be the shape of your life. You're 22 years old. You turn your head on the pallet. Your sister's pale shape in the dark, curled against your mother as she always is. You close your eyes and try to sleep and cannot. You open them again and the ceiling is still there. Somewhere outside, far off, a fox screams. That particular sound, raw and sudden, like something being torn, that carries across the dark fields and through the walls and into the room, and then is gone. You lie in the silence after it. You press your right thumb hard into your left palm. Nothing. The morning of the ceremony is cold and very clear. One of those October mornings where the sky's washed blue and the light has no warmth in it, and every breath comes out white. The frost has silvered the grass in the yard, and the mud of the track outside the house is hard and ridged underfoot. Your mother has laid out the black clothes, a black tunic borrowed from somewhere, from the church, you think, a garment kept specifically for this purpose, which is a thought that follows you through the morning. How many people have worn this same black tunic? How many times this garment has been washed and put away and brought out again? You dress in the cold of the bedroom, your family not watching, but present in the next room, the sounds of them, the low voices, your father's cough, the sound of your sister pouring water, all of it coming through the wall. The black tunic fits strangely, too long in the body, slightly too short in the sleeve. It smells of old wool and cedar and something else, some residue of the many hands that have worn it, something you can't name. You come out into the main room. Your mother looks at you for a long moment without saying anything. Then she comes over and straightens the collar, which doesn't need straightening, and smooths the cloth across your shoulders. There, she says, as if you've just dressed for church on an ordinary Sunday, as if she can make it ordinary by treating it so. You let her do it. Your father is standing near the door. He's already in his coat. He will walk with you to the church. Your sister is very still across the room, her hands held together in front of her. You look at her, and then you have to look away. The walk to the church is short and feels much longer. Your father walks beside you at a distance that is slightly too large to be natural, not large enough to be deliberate. Just that inch or two of extra space that people leave when they are aware of something they don't know how to address. You notice it the way you notice the hard, frozen ridges of the track under your feet, the cold air filling your chest with each breath, the thin smoke from the rooftops, the way all of this ordinary morning continues to happen around you, exactly as it always does. The bells ring prime as you approach the church. People are coming out from their houses, the early morning churchgoers, and some of them see you and slow and then look away, and you understand that word has spread in the way. Word always spreads, the way it moves through a small town faster than any official announcement. They know. They are watching you go by. You walk with your back straight and your chin up and your left hand at your side, where no one can see you curl it into a loose fist, the way you've taken to doing, the way that makes it feel slightly more present. Your father walks beside you and does not look at anyone. Inside the church, the smell of it envelops you as you come through the door, stone dust and candle wax and the cold that churches keep even in summer. The particular preserved cold of thick walls and flagstone floors. The smell of incense, the faint residue of 100 years of liturgical smoke, worked into the very stone. You have been in this church since you were carried in as an infant to be baptized. Father Edmund is at the altar. The physician is there, off to one side. Several parish officials you know by face but not well by name. Your father takes a place near the back. And there are others. A few people who belong in this ceremony as witnesses. You don't look at their faces. You go to stand where Father Edmund indicates, in front of the altar. There is a wooden bier. You know what a bier is. You have seen them at funerals. A flat wooden frame on which the coffin rests. There is no coffin. You stand before it and above it, and you understand what you are. You are the coffin. Father Edmund begins to speak. The words of the Mass, the liturgy of the dying, the words said at deathbeds and gravesides, Latin flowing over you like cold water. Requiem aeternam dona eis, Domine. Eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord, unto them, you. The candles on the altar burn steadily. The cold of the church settles against the back of your neck, your feet on the flagstone, the chill coming up through the soles of your good shoes. You notice this with great clarity, your hands hanging at your sides, the right one cold, the left one not registering temperature at all. The Mass continues. You're not dead. You're breathing in and out slowly, your heart doing its steady work behind your ribs, the muscles of your legs holding you upright on the stone floor. But the church is saying you are dead. The church is making it true, the way the church makes things true, by saying so in the correct words at the correct time in the correct place. When Father Edmund comes forward with the earth, dark, gravely real churchyard earth in a small clay bowl, and tips a measure of it over your head, you feel the weight of it in your hair, the grit of it against your scalp, one small piece of it running down behind your ear and stopping at your collar. Dead. And then Father Edmund reads the list. The list is long. You knew it would be. You thought you were prepared for it. You were not. He reads slowly, clearly. pausing between each item. The words are formal, old, drawn from ecclesiastical authority that goes back centuries. You're not to enter any church, any mill, any bakehouse, any marketplace. You are not to wash your hands or any of your goods in any stream or fountain. You're not to touch any article offered for sale until you have bought it. You're not to touch any child. You're not to eat or drink with any person other than lepers. You're not to go about the roads or in the fields without your leper's habit, without your bell or clapper, so that men may hear you coming. You're not to stand downwind of any person. You are not to answer any person who speaks to you from the road until you have placed yourself downwind of them. You are not to enter any inn. You're not to enter any house that is not the house of lepers. You have no rights of inheritance. You have no legal standing in court. You may not contract a marriage. Your existing marriage, if you had one, would be dissolved. You, Thomas, are now, in the eyes of the law, the church, and all men, as one already dead. Father Edmund closes the book. The church is very quiet. Your father is at the back of the church, and you do not turn to look at him, but you feel him there, behind you, the way you've always been able to feel where he is in a room. Then comes the procession. They walk you out. Not led by the wrists, not forced, just escorted, the way you might escort someone who needs to be shown the way. Father Edmund in front, the witnesses on either side. Your father follows. Outside, the October morning is still cold and clear and bright, and the world looks exactly as it always looks, exactly as it always will look, and this is somehow the hardest part. There is a small gathering outside the church door, more people than you expected. Some of them you have known your whole life. The baker whose bread you have eaten your entire life, who you have bought from weekly for years, the woman who sells herbs in the market, old Thomas the smith, who fixed the wheel of your father's cart 3 summers ago and charged half what he should have, because your father had helped him with his fence that spring. They are watching. Some of them look away when you look at them, some of them don't. You walk through them, you're given the habit. A rough grey wool mantle, long, and a hood that can be pulled forward. And the bell. It is heavier than you expected. Solid brass with a handle worn smooth by many hands before yours. The clapper inside makes a small sound when the bell tilts. Even before you ring it, a quiet interior rattle. You hold it at your side. Father Edmund says a few words you don't fully take in. There is a moment, and then your father is in front of you. He is not supposed to touch you. This has been explained. This is one of the things on the list. The people around you, the people who witnessed the ceremony, are supposed to maintain the distance that has just been formally established. Your father stands in front of you and looks at your face for a long moment. Then he puts both his hands on your shoulders, briefly, very briefly, and then he steps back. Walk well, he says. That is all. You turn, and you begin to walk east, out of town, towards St. Giles. And behind you, your father stands in the street and watches you go, and you don't look back. Because if you look back, you will not be able to keep walking. You walk. The bell is in your right hand, which can feel it. Your left hand swings at your side, which cannot. The east road is dry and hard in the frost, and your footsteps make clean sounds against it. You walk. St. Giles is perhaps 1.5 miles from the centre of town. You have made this walk, or pieces of it, many times in your life. Gone east to the mill, east to the common fields where your family has always held strips, east along the river in summer to swim in the deep pool below the old willows. Today the road feels longer, not because of the distance, because of the bell in your hand which you have not yet rung. There is no one else on the road this early, and Father, Edmund said you ring it when you are among people as a warning, and there are no people, so you hold it silent. But you know what it is for. You know what it means. You walk past the point where the mill track branches off, past the common fields, still showing the ridged marks of the last harvest, the pale stubble frost white in the morning light, past the old oak that stands at the place where the east road bends, the oak you've climbed approximately 1,000 times over the course of your childhood, its bark rough and grey and familiar. You don't touch it as you pass. The road bends, and there is St. Giles. From here, it looks much as it always has from a distance. A cluster of low stone buildings inside a low wall surrounded by a strip of kitchen garden now mostly cleared for winter. The small chapel at the far end with its plain wooden cross catching the light. But now you are walking toward it instead of past it. The gate is set into the south wall, a simple affair of rough timber, and it is open. As you approach, a figure detaches from the shadow beside the gate and comes forward. He's perhaps 50, with a broad, weathered face and an easy walk. He wears the grey mantle and hood. He's carrying a wooden clapper, not a bell, a clapper. 2 pieces of wood hinged together, making a flat percussive sound when he knocks them together now, once, by way of greeting. Thomas of Stow, he says. Yes. I'm William. I'm what passes for a prior here, though the bishop might use different language. He has the manner of someone who has conducted this particular meeting many times, who has learned to be gentle about it without being soft. Come in, I'll show you round. Then you can sleep, if you want. The first day is hard. He turns and walks into the yard, and you follow him through the gate. Behind you the October light falls on the road you came in on. You're inside. The first thing you notice is the smell. You'd expected, what? Something terrible. The smell of rot, of illness, of the thing you most feared. What hits you instead is wood smoke and turned earth, and the faint sweet smell of fermenting vegetable matter from the compost heap near the garden wall. Ordinary smells, the smell of any household at the beginning of winter, and underneath those, yes, something else. Not exactly rot, more like medicinal, sharp, with a sweetness beneath it. The particular smell of wounds being dressed with honey and herbs, which you'll come to know very well in the weeks ahead, but which now you register as simply another layer of the place's smell, not dominant, not overwhelming. It smells like people live here. That's what it smells like. People live here. William walks you around the enclosure, talking steadily in a matter-of-fact voice that gives you information without asking for reaction. The main hall, a long, low room with a central hearth, wooden tables, benches, where everyone eats and spends time in bad weather. 14 people currently in residence. The sleeping quarters, 2 long rooms off the main hall, 1 for men, 1 for women. You will be in the men's room. You'll have a pallet and a chest. He shows you which. The kitchen, a separate building, small, run mostly by a woman named Agnes, who has been here for 6 years. The cooking here is plainer than most houses, but there is enough of it, and the vegetable garden is good, and the town sends bread and a weekly alms of salted meat, which the bishop has required since the house was founded 30 years ago. The chapel, smaller than St. Bartholomew's, obviously, but kept clean, its stone floor worn smooth by 30 years of daily use. A carved wooden crucifix above the altar, one candle always burning. The garden substantial, well tended. Cabbages still in the ground, root vegetables already lifted and stored, the beds raked smooth. In summer it grows physics herbs as well as food. 3 of the residents who are able-bodied do most of the garden work. The gate rule, you may go out. You're not imprisoned here. But you go out with your mantle and your bell, and you follow the rules of the road, and you do not go into the town. There is a small window in the west wall, low to the ground, with a wooden shutter on a hinge. Pilgrims and townspeople who want to give alms come to the window. You can speak to them through it. You can receive small gifts through it. You cannot pass through it yourself. You stand in the November cold yard and take in the shape of your new life. The yard is perhaps 30 feet across. The walls are higher than they looked from the road, perhaps 8 feet, stone-topped with a roughly cut wooden paling. On the other side of those walls, the east road continues toward the river. Birds go over, a crow, then 2, then a ragged V of something smaller and faster heading south. The sky above the walls is very large. William takes you to the main hall. It is warmer inside, the central hearth going low and steady with what looks like a carefully maintained fire. Banks not to waste fuel, kept just large enough for the room's warmth. The smell in here is wood smoke and cooked grain and unwashed wool, and that underlayer of sweetness you noticed before. There are 5 people in the hall, an old man near the fire asleep or close to it, his hands in his lap, a woman in her 30s, heavy built with a direct way of looking at you, working at something with her hands, repairing a piece of cloth, her needle catching the light. 2 men about your age sitting across from each other at the far table, talking in low voices, who stop when you come in. A girl, no, a young woman, perhaps 18, sitting with her back against the far wall, knees drawn up, apparently doing nothing, who does not stop looking at whatever she was looking at, which seems to be the far corner of the room. This is Thomas, William says. The woman with the cloth looks up with a directness that is not unfriendly. Where are you from? Stowe. Thomas of Stowe. I'm Margaret. From March. She looks back at her work. You'll want food. There's pottage by the fire. One of the younger men, the one facing the door, tips his chin toward you. He has a scarring around the hairline that you notice before you've decided whether to look, and you make yourself meet his eyes instead. Martin, he says, sit down. You look like you need to. You sit down. Your legs, it turns out, are very tired. You've been rigid with effort all morning, holding yourself upright through the ceremony and the walk and the arrival. And now that you're sitting and the room is warm and nobody is watching you except in the ordinary way that people in a room share a space, something in your shoulders lets go. You sit there for a moment and just breathe. Then Margaret gets up and ladles pottage into a bowl without asking, and sets it in front of you with a piece of bread and goes back to her seat. You eat. It is plain, grain-based, some root vegetables, salt, a residue of something meaty that might have been the cooking fat. But it is hot, and it fills your mouth and your stomach, and it is simply, genuinely good in the way that food is good when your body needs it badly. You eat the bread too, and the bowl cleans itself on the bread, and you set the bowl down. First day's the worst, Martin says from across the room. He's not looking at you anymore. He's looking at the fire. Second day's bad. Third day you start to see the shape of the place. When did you arrive, you ask. 3 years ago. March. 4 years ago. Agnes, who cooks, she's been here 7. And William. William's been here since the beginning. He helped build this place. Martin glances at you briefly. He's all right. A bit churchy, but a good man. The girl against the wall, you don't know her name yet, makes a small sound that might be agreement. That's Cecily, Martin says. She doesn't say much, Cecily doesn't. React to this, which seems like her position on it. You look around the room. The old man is definitely asleep now, his chin on his chest, his breathing audible. The other young man, not Martin, is still at the table, writing something on a piece of wax tablet with a wooden stylus, his head bent. Who is that? Peter. He's a monk. Martin lowers his voice, though not conspiratorially, just out of habit. Or was. Novice at St. Edmund's before he was sent here. He writes things. What things I've never asked. Peter, as if he knows he's being discussed, looks up briefly, acknowledges you with a slight nod, and goes back to his tablet. He doesn't bite, Martin says. You look at the fire. Thank you, you say, for the pottage. Thank Margaret, Martin says. She's the one who fed you. The first week passes in a kind of suspension. You're not ill in any dramatic way. The disease at this stage is internal and quiet, doing its slow work in the nerves while outwardly you look and move and function more or less as you always have. This is the nature of it, the terrible patience of it. In the early stages you might walk into a crowded room and no one would know. Not yet, unless they knew to look. This will change, you know this. But for now you are simply yourself, in a new place, learning its rhythms. The days at St. Giles are structured in ways that become clear quickly. Prime bells mean morning prayers in the chapel, which are brief and austere. William presiding with a minimum of ceremony. Then breakfast, usually bread and small beer, occasionally a porridge of oats when the stores allow. Then work. Everyone works, in whatever capacity they can. Margaret runs the main household, which is more work than the phrase suggests. The fires kept, the sleeping quarters maintained, the weekly alms received and distributed, the accounts of supplies kept in her head since she cannot write. She's been doing this for 3 years, and she does it with the competence of someone who has long since made peace with what her life requires. Agnes runs the kitchen with a focused intensity that makes her small room smell continuously of rosemary and onion. She's perhaps 40, originally from somewhere in the fens, with a flat accent and a forthright manner that you find reassuring. She has lost 2 fingers on her right hand, not to the disease directly, but to a burn that was not properly felt and so not properly treated. The kind of accident that happens when sensation goes, and she has adapted. Her knife work slightly different, her grip adjusted, precise in its way. The garden work falls to you, and to Martin, and to a man named Edmund who arrived 6 weeks before you, and who is 25 and from Bury, and does not talk very much, not from unfriendliness, but from a natural quiet that you'll eventually come to appreciate. The garden in late autumn is mostly maintenance. The beds have been cleared and need to be turned and composted for spring. Some of the root vegetables need lifting before the hard frost comes, leaves to be raked and composted. The wall nearest the east gate has a section of crumbling mortar that needs attention before winter. You're given a spade and Martin shows you the beds and leaves you to it. The work is familiar, not identical to what you've done before, but close enough. Spade into earth, turn and break. The soil cold and heavy in October, resistant at first, then giving, your breath clouding. The smell of turned earth clean and sharp and old. Your right hand grips the handle and feels it. The weight, the vibration when the blade hits a stone, the particular solidity of a full spade load, the resistance of soil. Your left hand grips the handle and does not feel these things, and you work with it anyway because it works. The muscles and tendons doing what they are supposed to do, the grip holding, the coordination intact. The body continues. You work until the light goes. The second week, you begin to know people. Margaret, who it turns out has a precise and slightly sideways sense of humour that she deploys with complete deadpan delivery, and which takes you by surprise every single time. She was a wool merchant's wife in a market town, prosperous, with 2 children, until 3 years ago. The children are with her sister. She doesn't talk about this except once, briefly, and then the subject is closed with a finality that has nothing hostile in it, just a door gently but firmly shut. She knows more about the management of a household than anyone you've met. She negotiates the weekly alms through the wall window with a practical shrewdness that ensures St. Giles gets more than its due most weeks, and exactly its due when the town is being difficult. She monitors the stores with a constant mental inventory. She seems to sleep less than the rest of you, and you never catch her idle. "How do you do it?" you ask her one evening, watching her work in the firelight. "Do what?" "All of it. All the time." She doesn't look up. "What's the alternative?" Which is, you come to understand Margaret's entire philosophy. Martin, who turns out to be a former soldier, not a knight's man, but a foot soldier in the levy, served 2 campaigns in France before being mustered out when his condition became apparent. He is 28. He does not talk about France. He talks about food with great enthusiasm and technical knowledge that suggests he spent a lot of his time in the army thinking about meals he was not eating. He also fights. Not here. The rules of the house are clear on conflict, but there is a controlled violence in the way he holds himself, in the way he moves. That is simply part of him the way the grey mantle is part of him. You don't find this threatening. You find it, oddly, reassuring. There is someone here who has been through worse than this and is still here, still upright, still eating and talking and working. Peter, the monk that was, he writes constantly. What he writes, you finally ask him one morning while you're both in the chapel after the others have left. He looks at his wax tablet. "History," he says. "Of what?" "Of this place, the people in it. What happens here?" You think about this. Why? Because otherwise it is as if we were never here. He says it simply, not dramatically, the way you might say something that has been thought through many times. We're already as the dead, legally. If no one writes it down, we disappear completely. You sit with that for a moment. "Write me down too," you say. He looks at you, those pale, considering eyes. "I already have," he says. "Cecily." Cecily is harder to know, and you give her time, which is the only useful thing you can do. She is 17. She arrived 8 months ago, brought by her father, a prosperous farmer from a village to the north, who departed the same day and has sent no alms and no messages since. William mentions this once carefully and doesn't mention it again. She's not mute. You hear her speak to Margaret. She speaks to Agnes in the kitchen, where she sometimes helps, and you can hear through the open door the small ordinary sounds of conversation, requests and responses. Someone being asked where the salt is kept. With men she is careful. Not frightened exactly. More like someone who has learned, efficiently, to minimize exposure to a particular kind of risk. You honour this by not pressing it, and by doing the very unspectacular thing of simply being in the same space without making demands of it. One morning in the 3rd week, you're at the garden wall working on the crumbling mortar, mixing a batch of lime and sand in a wooden pail, and she comes and stands near you, not quite beside you, watching. After a while she says, "That's the wrong mix." You look at the pail. Is it? Too much lime. It'll dry too fast, won't bond right. You want more sand? You look at her. "My father builds walls," she says. She says, "My father," without any particular expression on it. "Can you show me?" She comes and adjusts the mix, shows you the consistency it should be, a particular grey smoothness. Demonstrates the application with a wooden trowel, firm pressure, slightly angled, working into the joint. You watch, and then you do it, and she watches and says when you're doing it wrong, which is twice, and when you're doing it right she doesn't say anything, which turns out to be her version of acknowledgement. You work on the wall together for 2 hours. She doesn't say much else, but she stays. A month in, your hand. You're working in the kitchen garden, turning a bed, and you look down at your left hand on the spade handle, and there is blood on it. Not much blood. A small cut on the heel of the palm, where apparently the spade handle has been rubbing. The kind of cut that should sting. The small, sharp sting of fresh, raw skin should have announced itself clearly enough for you to shift your grip. You did not feel it. You stand for a moment looking at the cut. Thin, clean, already beginning to close. Not serious. But you didn't feel it happen. This is what William explained to you in your first week here, with the patient thoroughness of a man who must explain important things in ways that people can hear. The numbness is the first danger because of exactly this. The injury that announces nothing. The fire you lay your hand too close to. The frozen fingers you warm too quickly. The ground you walk barefoot on when you should not. Feel it or protect it, William said, because it won't tell you when it's hurt. You set the spade down. You go inside and find Agnes, who keeps the dressings, and she cleans the cut with wine and binds it with a strip of clean linen with the brisk matter-of-factness she brings to everything. She doesn't comment on how it happened. You go back to the garden, but something has shifted. Not the day, not the garden, not the work, but your understanding of the work. You look at your gloved hand differently. You become deliberate in a new way. You check the left hand at intervals the way you might check a child who's gone quiet, not because they're necessarily doing something wrong, but because the silence itself needs accounting for. You develop a habit. Every 20 minutes or so you look at your left hand, turn it, examine it, confirm its condition. Not anxious, exactly. Anxiety would exhaust you, but methodical. It becomes part of the work. December. The cold arrives with serious intent. The garden is done, or as done as gardens get in winter. The beds covered with straw for protection. The herbs that can be saved brought indoors in pots. The compost heaps banked. The days get short and the cold gets deep, and the 14 people of St. Giles spend more of their time inside. The hall fire going steadily throughout the day. People gathered around it in the practical democracy of shared warmth. The old man near the fire, whose name is John, a former tanner from a village south of here, 70 years old, who has been at St. Giles for 4 years. John gets worse in December. His is an advanced case, and you understand now what that means in concrete, visible terms. The disease that works outward has been working on John for a long time. His face has changed in the ways you'd been told about, thickened, the features broadened and reshaped. His hands are significantly reduced. He walks with difficulty. He's been losing his sight slowly, the eyes affected in the way that advanced cases sometimes are. In December, something internal worsens. You don't know exactly what. William knows, consults the physician who visits monthly, uses the word noli me tangere, which you learn means not only the gospel phrase, but also a specific kind of ulceration that is not healing. John is in pain. He doesn't say so, but you can see it in the way he holds himself, and in the way he breathes at night in the men's sleeping room, and in the way he sleeps less as December deepens. You sit with him sometimes in the evening, not because anyone has asked you to, not out of duty in any formal sense, just because he is there and awake and you are awake and the fire is going and the silence isn't uncomfortable. He tells stories from before, his wife dead 12 years, his son who works the land, the tannery which he ran for 30 years, which he describes with a pride of craftsmanship even now. The vats and the bark and the particular smell of new tanned leather, which he apparently loved in the way that tradesmen love the smell of their own trade. What was the best you ever made? You ask him one evening. He considers this seriously. A pair of boots, he says, for a gentleman I never met. He sent his measurements. Finest calfskin, double-soled. Took me 3 weeks. Did you ever see him wear them? Never met him. He pauses. A small adjustment of position, the tight controlled movement of someone managing pain. But sometimes I think about those boots, walking somewhere in rain or sun, doing their job. You're quiet for a moment. That matters, you say. That counts. He looks at you. Yes, he says. I think it does. John dies in January, on a Thursday morning. You wake before the others and know, in the way you know things in the still dark of early morning, that the breathing in the corner has changed, stopped. You get up, cross the cold floor. Look. William is called. The chapel service is said that same morning, brief and plain. They bury him in the small yard to the north of the chapel wall, in the strip of ground set aside for exactly this, marked with a simple wooden cross. The ground is frozen, and the digging is hard, and Martin and Edmund and you take turns with the tools, working in the cold white morning, your breath coming hard, the earth giving way reluctantly. It is hard work. You are glad of it. Hard work fills the time and the body in ways that are useful in the immediate vicinity of grief. You didn't know John well. A month of evenings, stories about boots and tanning. But grief, you're discovering, is not always proportional to how well you knew someone. Sometimes it is about what they represent, what it means that they are gone. It means it's real. It means the disease ends in exactly the way you knew it ended, and it ends here, in this yard, with people who dig the frozen ground and say the plain prayers and go back inside to continue the day. You stand at the graveside after the others have gone back in. The wooden cross is rough finished, the grain of the wood visible. A magpie lands on the chapel wall and looks at you and flies away. You go back inside. By February you have learned to navigate your days with a kind of practical attention that was not in itself part of the life you had before. Before, your hands moved without much conscious supervision. They knew what to do, the right grip for the awl, the right pressure for the needle, the muscle memory of 2 years in Robert's workshop. You could think about other things while your hands worked. Now there is a 2-stage process. Left hand checked, confirmed, accounted for. Right hand operating with full sensation. The left doing its job, moving and gripping and pulling, but requiring monitoring in a way the right does not. It is more tiring than it sounds. Not dramatically, not collapsingly, but there is a low continuous cost to it, the cost of sustained attention, and at the end of a working day you are tired in a slightly different way than you used to be. You don't mention this to anyone. Not because it's a secret, but because there's no particular use in the mentioning. Everyone here carries some version of this. The extra work of damaged bodies, the constant small negotiations between what you could do and what you can still do. Robert's tools arrived in January. A boy brought them to the gate window. You didn't see him, heard him knock and give the parcel to William, and William brought them to you. All needle, thread, a small straight knife, a square of pumice for smoothing edges, a folded piece of parchment in which Robert had written 3 words in his large, unpractised hand. Good luck, Thomas. You put the tools in your chest, then you take them out again, and you make a pair of gloves, not for anyone in particular, for practice, for the keeping of the skill. Your right hand does the cutting, most of the stitching, all of the fine work. Your left hand holds and braces. The gloves take 3 times as long as they would have in Robert's workshop. They are not as even as Robert's work or as even as your own work from 6 months ago. But they are gloves, functional, wearable, real. You hold them up and look at them in the thin winter light from the window. You make another pair. Spring arrives with its particular quality of cruelty. Not cruelty of intent, just the cruelty of contrast. The warmth coming back into the air after months of cold, the first green things appearing in the garden beds, the sky that kind of pale clean blue that England does in early April, before the grey settles back in. The birds back, noisier by the day. The smell of the earth in the morning after frost lifts. That dark mineral smell of soil coming back to life. The world deciding to be beautiful. You spend a morning in the garden, preparing the early beds, breaking the winter compacted earth, and the work is good and the air is clean on your face, and you are in a way that you have not been in months, simply present in your body in a pleasant way, your muscles working, your back warm from movement, the earth turning dark and ready under the spade. You think, I am still here, not dramatically, not with surprise or bitterness, just as a simple fact worth noting. You are still here. You've been here 5 months. The world outside the walls has continued, presumably, markets and harvests and local politics, and all the small dramas of the town, and here inside the walls the world has also continued, smaller and quieter but no less real. You are 22 years old, and you have leprosy, and you live in a lazar house outside your hometown, and you're still here. The spade goes into the earth. You lift and turn and break. A robin lands nearby, 3 feet away, watching for worms with professional intensity. You work for another hour. In April, a new arrival. A woman, perhaps 35, from a village further north. Her name is Agnes. No, not the kitchen Agnes. The new woman is Agnes also, Agnes of Fen to distinguish, which becomes her name in the house. She arrives with the same quiet terror that you must have arrived with, which you can now read on a face the way you couldn't in October. You don't say anything that first day. You remember what it felt like, the ceremony of October still close enough to be sharp. You let it be. But 2 days later you're in the garden when she comes out and stands in the yard, and you go over without thinking about it particularly, and you show her the beds and what will go in them and what's already showing, the early kale, the first tips of the herbs. She listens with attention. It's big, she says. The garden. It is. We can show you the whole thing. I grew vegetables at home, in a smaller space. That'll be useful here. She looks at the beds, and then she looks at the chapel, and then she looks at the gate. "Can you ever," she starts, "go out?" "Yes, with the mantle and the bell, not into the town, but you can walk the road." She nods slowly. "It's not." You start. Then you stop because you were about to say something that isn't quite true, isn't quite false. Something that treads the edge of false reassurance, which is the one thing you promised yourself not to give to anyone. "It's real," you say instead. "It's a real life. It's not what we had, but it's real." She looks at you. "I know," she says. "I just needed to hear someone say it." May brings a visitor. Not to the house. To the window in the west wall. This happens occasionally. Townspeople bringing alms, pilgrims seeking the blessing that proximity to suffering was believed to confer. You've stood at the window before, receiving bread or cloth or coin, exchanging a few words, the strange transaction of the window with its clear architectural message. You may give, but you may not enter. You may speak, but you may not close the distance. This visitor is different. It is your sister. You hear her voice before you see her. You're in the hall, and the window is set in the far wall, and you hear her asking for Thomas of Stowe. And the way she says your name is so exactly itself, so completely unchanged from every time you've heard her say it in your life, that you are across the room and at the window before you've decided to move. She's standing in the spring morning, not yet 16, and she has grown in the months since October, and she has your father's jaw and your mother's eyes, and she looks at you through the window opening with an expression that has too many things in it to read all at once. "You can't be here," you say. "Mother and father don't know. Don't tell them." "Anna, I'm not here long. I just needed to see you She stops. "You look fine." "I am fine." "You look the same." "I more or less am the same." She looks at you and you can see her processing this, deciding whether to believe it. The careful 16-year-old logic of someone who's been told many times that things are fine and has learned to check. "Is it bearable?" she asks. "Yes, it's bearable." She nods slowly. "Good." A pause. She has something in her hands, a small bundle wrapped in cloth. She sets it on the windowsill. "From Robert. He said to tell you he needs you to look at something, and he doesn't want anyone else's opinion because everyone else is wrong. He said you'd know what that means. You look at the bundle. Pick it up. Through the cloth, the shape of a pair of gloves. He sent work. He says they're messed up in the left thumb seam and it's been driving him mad. He says you're the only one who ever cut that particular seam right. You look at your sister. He knows I can't. I'd have to send them back through the window. He said that's fine. You hold the gloves. "Tell him," you start. "Stop. Tell him I'll have a look." She nods. Then she says, "Thomas." "Yes. I'm going to come back. Not yet. Father would..." "Not yet. But I'm going to come back." "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to." The same intonation Robert used when he said the same thing, so exactly her own, and so exactly like something from the life you came from that your throat closes for a second. "I'm going to." You look at her through the window. "All right," you say. She nods once. Then she turns and walks away along the road, and you watch her go until she turns the corner. You stand at the window for her, while after she's gone. The spring morning is bright and quiet. A cart somewhere on the east road, the creak of it growing and then fading. A bee, early for the season, investigating the herb beds along the inside wall. You look at the bundle in your hands. You go inside. You take the gloves apart at the left thumb seam. You're right. Robert's technique at the base of the gusset has allowed a minute rotation, barely visible, that will cause the seam to fail under stress. The usual Robert error. His accuracy is so high that when he makes a mistake he makes it almost invisibly, the problem hidden in a fraction of degree. You correct it. Your right hand holds the work, your left braces and assists, moving where directed, gripping and releasing on instruction. You check it at intervals. The stitching is smaller than Robert's and different, and when you hold the finished seam up to the light it is clearly not his hand. Anyone who knows his work would see that immediately, but it is correct. More than correct. The reinforcement you've put in at the gusset base, that's something you've been thinking about for months, a modification of the technique, something that came from the long, slow, problem-solving time of winter evenings. You show your work, as it were, in the stitch pattern. You fold the gloves in the cloth. Write 3 words on a scrap of parchment. Peter lends you the piece from the corner of one of his tablets, and you write with the small knowledge of letters your father made sure you had. 3 words. Fixed. Also improved. You put the note inside the cloth. Set the bundle by the window. Summer. The garden in summer is a different place entirely. The beds that were bare, frost-hard earth in November are now dense and complex and smelling powerfully of growth. The green-sharp smell of young kale, the medicinal sweetness of the physic herbs, the dry fragrance of the chamomile bed, the thick, cool smell of the bean plants on their poles. You spend your mornings here. You've become the person who knows it best after Agnes of Fen, who turned out to have not just experience but genuine skill. An eye for what a plant needs and when it needs it. An understanding of soil that is bodily, hands deep. Together you have extended the chamomile bed, added a new section of elecampane. William wanted it for lung complaints, which St. Giles has its share of in winter, and planted a row of weld for dyeing, which Agnes of Fen suggested and which you supported because it made practical sense, and also because she wanted it, and she had been here 4 months and was still building the small structures of purpose and ownership that make a life coherent. The days are long. The sun is up early and sets late, and the work fills the light hours with an ease that winter doesn't allow. You are brown from outdoor work, and your hands are hard with it, the calluses renewed. Your left hand you have wrapped the palm with a strip of linen not from wounds, just as a habit now, a protection against unfelt abrasion. It is part of your daily kit, same as the mantle. You put it on without thinking about it in the mornings. There are mornings when the left hand is fully functional, all fingers closing and opening with their proper strength, the limitation only sensory. There are other mornings when there is a stiffness, subtle, not quite pain, something, and you work through it without drama because working through it is the only available option. You have not counted your good days and bad days, have made a deliberate decision not to count, because counting would make it a competition you can't win. July brings heat, the kind of dry English heat that feels borrowed, that everyone treats with the slightly anxious gratitude you give to things that might be taken away at any moment. The garden loves it. The chamomile blooms in dense, flat-topped yellow profusion. The bean pods swell. The kale goes half wild, enormous, dark, and glossy. You eat well in summer. Agnes's kitchen does what summer allows. Fresh vegetables from the garden, the weekly alms more generous when the town is prosperous, the occasional gift of fish or foul through the window from donors with means. In the evenings, people sit in the yard. This is perhaps what you will remember best in later years. The summer evenings in the yard, the long blue dusk, the birds doing their evening business overhead, the walls keeping out the wind but not the sky, the yard open above to that long settling light. Margaret mending things in the last of the light, her needle moving with its practised automaticity. Martin telling one of his food stories, this time about something involving a French village and a disagreement about the proper way to roast a pig. Agnes of Fen with her hands still dirty from the garden not minding. Peter writing his tablet. Edmund, who barely speaks, but who's been known to laugh at Martin's stories, which Martin considers one of the higher compliments available. Cecily, who by now talks to you with reasonable ease, not freely but with ease, telling you once in the careful voice of someone getting something precise that she misses her mother's singing. Just that. She misses her mother's singing. You tell her your grandmother used to sing harvest songs which you've now largely forgotten, and the forgetting bothers you more than you'd have expected. What do you remember? She asks. The rhythm, not the words. She nods. That's something. And time passes. The way time passes in a small enclosed place, seemingly slowly and then all at once, and then you look back, and the distance is real. Another winter, another spring. You are 23 and then 24. Your sister comes twice more to the window, and the second time your father is with her, standing a little behind. And when you come to the window, he is there, and you look at each other through the window for a moment. The space between you, very small and very large at once. You look well, he says. I am well enough. He nods. He has aged in the 1.5 years since October, or you're seeing him with different eyes. The slight stoop he always had when standing still, the grey coming into his hair. Robert says you fixed his seam. He sent it, I fixed it. He says it's the best work he's seen. You don't answer this. I'm sending you something, your father says, through the bishop's arms. It's not much. Father, you don't. I know I don't. He says it the way everyone who loves you apparently says it, like it's not the point. I will. You look at him. How is the house? You ask. The house is fine. Your sister makes your mother mad, but it's fine. Give them my love. They know they have it. He stands there for another moment, looking at you, his open hands at his sides, those carpenter's hands, the hands you recognize in your own. You're managing, he says, not a question exactly. I am, you say. We all are. Here. He nods slowly. Good, he says. That's good. He and your sister walk away down the road. You watch until they turn the corner. The day goes on. There is a view you find, eventually. Not a hill. The land here is too flat for hills. This is the low eastern country, wide-skied and long-horizoned, and the walls of St. Giles are 8 feet high, which is 6 feet taller than the world. But there is a section of the wall, the northwest corner, where the stone has settled unevenly over 30 years, and one of the coping stones has shifted to create a rough step, a ledge you can stand on with careful footing that puts you perhaps 6 inches above the top of the wall. You find this in your second spring. You don't tell anyone, not because it's a secret exactly, but because it becomes a place you go alone, early in the morning before prime, when the light is just beginning and the town is quiet and the birds are loud. You stand on the ledge and you can see over the wall. Not the town is to the west, and what you're seeing is north and east, the common fields, the river somewhere in the middle distance, a line of willows following its course. Beyond that, further, the flat farmland rolling toward a horizon that on clear mornings seems impossibly far. The sky is very large here. You stand and look at it. The East Road is visible from this angle, the strip of it running through the fields toward the river crossing and whatever is beyond. On market days you can see figures on it, small and distant. Carts sometimes. People going and coming, the world continuing. One morning in your second summer, you're standing on the ledge at first light, the sky pink and grey in the east, the bird song enormous, and you have a thought that is not dramatic or triumphant or in any way the kind of thought that makes a good story, and yet it is completely true. You are still here, not still here despite everything, not the adversarial grammar of survival, not the rhetoric of endurance against odds that people use when they want suffering to mean something larger than itself, just still here, present, alive. On a ledge in a lazar house in the flat English East, looking at a pink horizon over wet fields 24 years old, the left hand wrapped in its linen, the bell hanging on its peg inside. The disease is progressing in the way it progresses, slowly, methodically. Your face in Agnes's good metal mirror, the only mirror at St. Giles used for wound checks, shows the beginning of changes you recognise from John's face and from others here. The slight thickening, the slight broadening, things that are not yet what they will become. This is your face. It is still your face. It will continue to be your face. You will live here for years, probably. You will know this yard and these people and this garden and this sky. You will make gloves. You will turn the winter beds. You will stand at this ledge in the early mornings and look at the horizon. You will have a life, not the life you expected, a life. A robin lands on the coping stone 6 inches from your hand and looks at you with its professional expectation, and you don't move, and it hops once and flies away. You look at the horizon for another minute. Then you climb down and you go inside to wash your face in the cold water from the basin, the right hand feeling the cold and the left one not, and you get dressed for the day. The evenings get shorter as autumn comes back around. October again, a year complete. You're in the hall after supper, the fire going, the familiar gathering of people. Margaret has acquired a second needle somewhere and is teaching Agnes of Fen to mend in a more efficient way. Martin is telling a story you've heard before but which gets better in each telling, something about a goat and a river crossing in France. Edmund is quiet and present as always. Peter is writing. Cecily is sitting near the fire and she is singing, just quietly, under her breath, not performing, just something moving through her, some song she remembered. You can't make out the words, just the shape of the tune. A simple thing, nothing elaborate. The fire goes on, the bell hangs on its peg by the door. Outside, the October dark has settled in, the early dark of shortening days, and somewhere outside the walls the East Road runs east to the river and west to the town, and your father's workshop is in the town, and your sister is in the town, and Robert's workshop is in the town, and the church where the ceremony happened is in the town, and all of it is exactly where it always was, and you are here. The fire crackles. Cecily's song is so quiet it is almost just breath. Your right hand is resting on the table and you can feel the grain of the wood under your fingers, the slight roughness of it, the warmth of the fire reaching you from the hearth. Your left hand is in your lap. You are warm. You are fed. The people around you are real and present and known to you in the way that people become known when you share the day-to-day ordinariness of living in the same space over time. Across the hall, Peter looks up from his tablet and catches your eye. He nods once, briefly. He's writing you down. You nod back. The first time you go out on the road with the bell is in November of your second year. Not a necessity. William doesn't require it. Some people here rarely leave the enclosure at all. Agnes of Fen has not gone past the gate in 4 months, and she's not troubled by this. She has found her world in the garden and the kitchen, and that seems, for now, to be sufficient. Margaret goes out perhaps once a week, to the arms window on the far side of the chapel where certain regular donors prefer to give directly. But you have been here 13 months, and there is a thing that has been unresolved in you since October of the year before, since the walk-in from town in the frost carrying a bell you didn't ring, because the road was empty. You need to ring it. You understand this imperfectly, the way you understand things that are more physical than logical. You need to know what it sounds like. You need to hear it as the thing it is, the bell that is yours now, the bell that marks your condition in public. And you need to do it rather than dread it, because the dread of the thing undone is worse than the thing itself. You tell William you're going for a walk. He looks at you for a moment with the calm, considering look he has for most things. Stay to the east, he says. Market is on today. You go east. The November morning is cold and overcast, the sky low and flat, that particular November sky that seems to press the world downward. The ground hard underfoot, not quite frozen but with that iron quality that comes before a hard frost, and the grass along the verge white-edged, brittle, crackling when you step through it. You have the mantle on, the hood up, the bell in your right hand. The east road runs away from you in both directions, east toward the river and the villages beyond it, west, behind you toward the town you came from. A few 100 yards ahead, the road makes a gentle curve around a stand of alder, and beyond the curve, you know from having walked this road 100 times before your life changed. There is a straight stretch to the river ford, and it is along that straight stretch that people walk on market days, carriers and small traders and farmers with carts, all of them heading west into town. You start walking east. Your footsteps on the road are clear in the cold air. Your breath comes out white. The world is very quiet. Then you hear it, not yet seeing them, just the sound of a cart somewhere beyond the alder stand, the creak and rattle of it, the horse's hooves, unhurried, the sound of someone carrying something to market. You stop. You look at the bell in your hand. The brass is cold. The handle is worn smooth, as you've noted before, by the hands of the people who carried it before you. How many people? How many mornings on this road? You ring it. The sound is high and clear and loud in the cold air, and it carries, and it is unmistakably what it is. Not a dinner bell, not a church bell. This bell, this sound, means one thing in this time and place, and everyone on this road knows what it means. You ring it twice, the regulation. 2 rings, wait, 2 rings. So there is no ambiguity. The cart comes round the curve and into sight. The man on the cart, a farmer you don't know by name, a broad red-faced man with a load of root vegetables, hears the bell and does what people do. He pulls his horse to the left side of the road, to the far verge, giving you the maximum space. And he looks at a point slightly above your head, not at you, and waits. You walk past him. You keep your eyes straight ahead. You ring the bell twice more as you pass. You're supposed to, and you keep walking. You don't look at his face. You don't need to. You know what you would see there. Not malice. Not hatred necessarily. just the complicated thing that happens to a face when it is looking at something it has been taught to be afraid of. The shuttered quality, the deliberate blankness, the studied act of not looking that is itself a kind of look. You walk until the sound of his cart is gone, then you stop, stand on the road. The alder stand is behind you now, and ahead is the long straight to the river, and the road is empty in both directions, and the overcast sky is enormous above you. Your heart is going harder than the walking warrants. You look at the bell. You did it. It rings when you ring it. You are what you are. The man on the cart moved to the verge, and you passed, and the world continued in exactly the way the world continues. You're still standing. You ring the bell once more, not because anyone is coming, just to hear the sound. To have it be a sound you made by choice in an empty road on a November morning. It rings out over the frosted fields. A crow on the fence post to your left doesn't even look up. You stand there for a moment, then you turn around and walk back to St. Giles. The bishop's visitation comes in March of your second year. You've been warned it was coming. William told the house a week in advance, and the warning produced variously. Agnes starting deep cleaning the kitchen with an intensity that went past necessity. Martin's dry assessment that the bishop's concern for lazar houses was in inverse proportion to his proximity to them. Peter beginning a fresh wax tablet, as if the visitation would require new documentation, and Margaret doing nothing differently at all, because Margaret runs the house correctly at all times and does not require external motivation. The bishop himself does not come. His representative comes, a canon, a lean middle-aged man in good clothes, with an assistant who carries a large writing box and the expression of someone who writes many things down and finds the world mostly disappointing. They come through the gate with a brief acknowledgement of the people assembled in the yard, and they're shown around by William, and you stand with the others in your place and you watch the way the canon moves through the house. He has been to lazar houses before, that's clear. He does not flinch or hold his sleeve against his nose or take the exaggerated care of someone performing bravery against fear. He looks at what is there to look at with professional attention. He looks at the sleeping quarters, the kitchen, the chapel, the garden. He asks William specific questions about numbers, stores, health, deaths in the past year. William answers correctly. John, 1 death, winter fever. No new cases of plague. 2 arrivals, yourself and Agnes of Fen. Stores adequate. Alms regular from the town. The bishop's grant received and applied as directed. The canon's assistant writes things. Then the canon asks to speak to the residents. This is more unusual. William's eyebrows move slightly. You are asked questions, each of you in turn standing in the hall. Are you in good health? Are you receiving adequate food? Are the conditions of your habitation satisfactory? Are you treated with charity? The questions are formal and the answers required are brief. You say yes, 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 which is for you true. Others say the same. Agnes of Fen says it with the careful precision of someone who has decided that yes is the correct answer and is determined to give it correctly. Cecily says it very quietly and does not look at the canon's face, and the canon does not press her. Then the canon does something unexpected. He asks if anyone has concerns. A silence. Martin looks at the ceiling. Edmund studies the table. Peter appears to be writing, though he has no tablet out. Then Margaret says, "The east wall." The canon looks at her. The mortar is failing along the east wall, not the section we repaired. The further section, north corner, It needs attention before next winter, the canon's assistant writes. Anything else? The alms from the town have been reliable, Margaret says in the same level tone. But the bread has been short-weighted 3 weeks in 4 since October. Whoever is doing the weighing is weighing short, the assistant writes. The canon looks at Margaret with an expression that is not quite surprise, but is in that direction. I'll speak to the almoner, he says. Thank you, Margaret says. Afterward, when the canon and his assistant have gone, William looks at Margaret across the hall. The bread, he says. It has been short-weighted. I know it has. Then someone needed to say it. William looks at her for a moment. Not disapproving. Something more like appreciation. Yes, he says. They did. Margaret goes back to whatever she was doing. The bread weight improves in April. Margaret doesn't comment on this. Summer of the second year has a long golden stretch. In August, where the days are so good they feel borrowed, the way English summer always feels borrowed, and the evenings in the yard are longer and softer than anything you've had at St. Giles before. It is on one of these evenings, the sky still light at 9, the garden smelling of warm chamomile and damp earth, that you teach Cecily to make gloves. Not formally, not with intention. It starts because she's sitting near you while you work, watching your hands, and after a while she says, "What are you making?" "A glove. Robert sends the cut pieces now and I stitch them here." "Does he sell them?" "I think so. He's never said." She watches your hands for a while longer. "Can I try?" You look at her hands. They are, you've noticed, precise hands, small and capable, the kind of hands that do fine work. Hold it like this. You show her the grip on the needle. The leather is forgiving if you don't force it. Let the awl make the hole first, then the needle follows, she tries. The first stitch is too tight. You show her how to gauge tension. The second is better. That's it, you say. Feel the resistance. That's the leather telling you when to stop. She makes a third stitch, looks at it. It's crooked. A little. That's fine for learning. I don't want it crooked. Then the next one straighter. She makes the next one straighter. You work in silence beside each other in the evening light, the garden smelling of summer, the other voices of the yard around you. She is focused with the complete attention of someone encountering a skill for the first time and finding they want to be good at it. After an hour, she holds up the strip she's been practicing on. The stitching is uneven at the start and then gets steadily better and then at the end achieves something close to correct. Better, you say. Better isn't right. Better is the direction of right. You start with better. She looks at the stitching. Then she says quietly, without making a significant thing of it, "My mother made lace. I used to watch her hands. You keep working." "Did you ever learn it?" you ask. "She was going to teach me." You're quiet. "That's the worst kind," you say eventually. "The teaching that didn't happen." She looks at you. "Yes," she says. "That's the word for it." In the autumn of your second year, a man arrives at the west window with a different kind of arms. You hear about it second-hand from Margaret. A merchant, prosperous from the look of him. He came to the window on a Wednesday afternoon, not a regular alms day, and asked if there was a glover at St. Giles. William told him yes. The merchant came back the next day with a commission, not a gift, a payment. He needed a pair of presentation gloves, the kind given as a formal gift between men of business, embroidered at the cuff, carefully made. His usual glover in town had broken his hand and was not working. He had heard from someone who had heard from someone, and here you think of your sister's visit, think of Robert. that there was work coming out of St. Giles worth looking at. He was willing to pay. William asks you. You say yes without deliberating. The commission takes you 2 weeks. The merchant sends the specifications through the window, size, colour, a described design for the cuff embroidery, and Margaret receives them and copies them in her own notation and brings them to you, and you look at them for a long time and make your own notes, and then you begin. The cutting is the first challenge. You've been working on pieces that Robert pre-cuts and sends, and your cutting since arriving at St. Giles has been limited, and your left hand is less reliable for cutting work than the right. You set yourself a practice session of 3 mornings before you touch the good leather. 3 mornings cutting from inferior pieces, working out the accommodation, the right hand doing the primary work, the left holding with a grip that compensates for what it cannot tell you. By the 3rd morning the cuts are clean. The leather for the commission is good, fawn-coloured, very soft, the kind that costs considerably. You cut carefully and slowly and with complete attention, the cuts coming out clean, the pieces matching. The stitching takes most of the 2nd week. The main seams first, the fundamental structure of the glove, your practice technique, the stitching even by the end of the day. Then the finer work, the fingers, the gussets, the careful closing of each seam, the embroidery at the cuff last. This is not something you were trained in exactly, not Robert's specialty. But you have spent a year watching Margaret mend and stitch and embellish, and Cecily's growing skill, and some studying of what you can see through the alms window of the decorative work on people's clothing. You ask Margaret to look at your design before you begin. She studies it for a moment. "The vine motif," she says, "too close at the stem, more space. Here. And the leaf direction, if you go this way," she indicates with her finger, not touching the leather, "the shadow lies better in the light. You adjust the design, then you stitch it. The finished gloves take your breath slightly when you hold them up. Not because they are perfect. They are not perfect. Your own gloves from Robert's workshop were better, more even, more quick, the work of a younger and undiminished hand. But they are good. They are the work of someone who knows what they are doing, who has made a studied and methodical accommodation with what their hands now are, and found within that accommodation a quality of work worth paying for. You fold them in clean linen, you send them through the window. 3 days later the merchant returns to the window. "I need 2 more pairs," he says. Word moves the way word moves. By winter you have 3 regular commissions, none of them large, all of them enough. The coins come through the window, through William, who manages the finances of the house, and are added to the common purse. But William makes a notation, and the notation exists, a small mark in the ledger that says, "From Thomas's work." You don't ask for the money back. That is not the point. The point is the notation, the mark that says something came from you, that your hands are still hands that make things, that the world outside the wall still receives what your hands produce. That is enough, more than enough. December of the 2nd year. The cold that settles in properly, seriously, the cold that makes the water in the pail a skin of ice by morning, and the garden ground iron hard beneath its straw covering. You have your winter routine now, known and bodily. The extra wool pulled from the chest, the way you sleep on your right side, the left hand tucked against your chest where the body's warmth can compensate for what the damaged nerves cannot. The morning check, left hand, flex the fingers, observe. The progression of the disease is in your face now, not dramatically. Anyone who met you for the first time might notice only that your features are somewhat broad, somewhat heavy, might put it down to constitution and think nothing more. But in Agnes's metal mirror, in the particular quality of attention you bring to that morning check, you can see what is different from last year. The skin of your forehead is thicker, the brow heavier, the nose beginning, just beginning, to change its shape in the way you have seen in John's face and in Martin's, in the way the physician described in the vestry that October morning as leonine. You look at yourself in the mirror for a long time one morning, then you put the mirror down, then you pick it up again and look some more. This is your face. It is changing. It will continue to change. You set the mirror down and wash your face in the cold water, the right hand feeling the cold and the left one doing its work without feeling, and you dry yourself with the rough cloth and you go to breakfast. Martin is already at the table, eating bread with the focus of someone who takes breakfast seriously. You look like someone who had a thought, he says. Looking in the mirror. He nods slowly. First time looking properly for a while. He tears a piece of bread. I did that, about 18 months in, looked properly. And then I had breakfast. He holds up the bread. Still tastes the same. You sit down. Agnes of Fen brings you bread and a cup of weak ale, the morning routine, and you eat it, and it tastes exactly as it always has. There is a night, in January of the 3rd year, when you are lying awake and the house is quiet and the cold is deep, and you think about the boy you were in the workshop, 22, working in Robert's shop, the smell of leather and chalk, the rhythm of the tools, the particular pleasure of a seam done well. That boy is still somewhere in you. You haven't lost him. He's in your hands when you work. He's in the standard you hold yourself to, the quality you demand from the stitching, even when no one will see it, even when the inside seam of a glove will never be examined by anyone. He had a life he expected, a specific, ordinary, decent life, the kind that most people in this time and place hope for and sometimes get. A trade, a house, a family, the ordinary continuances. He didn't get that life, but he did not disappear either. He's in the work. He's in the garden bed turned and ready for spring. He's in the morning hours in the chapel when the prayers settle into you like water into dry ground, not meaning what they meant to the boy he was, but meaning something. He's in the notation in William's ledger, from Thomas's work. He's in the gloves walking somewhere in the world, on someone's hands, doing their job. You lie in the dark and the cold, and you breathe out slowly, your left hand on the blanket. You press your right thumb into the palm. Nothing. And that is all right. That is your hand. That has always been your hand since October of 3 years ago. You close your eyes. The house breathes around you. Spring of the 3rd year arrives with its usual cruelty of beauty. The sky absurdly blue. The garden beds showing green a full week earlier than last year. A warm, wet February having done its work in the soil. You are in the garden on the first really warm morning, not just mild warm, the kind of warmth that reaches the shoulders and stays there. And you're turning the bed nearest the south wall, which catches the sun earliest and longest. And the earth here has that spring quality of dark and giving. The composted straw of winter incorporated. The soil alive with the small industry of worms. Cecily is nearby, preparing the herb section, her hands working with the confidence that 2 seasons of gardening has given her. She has become a person you know, with a deep peripheral familiarity of people whose daily work overlaps with yours. You don't always talk. You often don't. but the shared work is its own kind of conversation. Agnes of Fen is at the far end, singing something quietly. She sings in the garden sometimes, not always, and when she does it is the small folk songs of the Fens, flat country songs in a flat country voice, tuneful and undecorated. Martin is on the bench near the chapel door, looking at the sky with the expression of someone who has decided to be outside and is committed to it. The bell is on its peg inside the door. The east road is beyond the walls, going its way. Your spade goes into the earth. Your hands, both of them, the one that feels and the one that doesn't, do their work. The morning goes on. Later, after the fire is banked and the candles out and the hall quiet and the breathing of the sleeping room around you at its slow, even pace. The men's room. Martin's deep, slow breathing on the far side. Edmund, whose sleeping is so quiet you sometimes listen for it on purpose to confirm it's there. Peter, who sometimes wakes to write things he's thought of in the night, the small, careful scratch of his stylus. Cold in the room, the October cold back, the blanket pulled up, the straw of the mattress shifted into the familiar indentations of your weight. Quiet. Your eyes are open in the dark. Your left hand is in the same position as always beside you, on the blanket. You press the right thumb into the left palm, once, the old habit, and you feel nothing, and that is fine. That is your hand. That is the condition of your hand. You let the habit go. The sounds of the house, small, familiar. The way any house sounds at night, the timbers settling in the cold, the mouse in the corner doing whatever mice do, you've made a vague sort of peace with the mouse, which is Martin's position on house mice. They earn their keep in insect removal and should not be harassed. Beyond the walls, the night sounds of the countryside, faint and diffuse. An owl somewhere. Your eyes are heavy. The day was a good one. The garden prepared another bed. Agnes of Fen found, at the back of the physics section, a lavender plant that had survived the winter under some straw, and when she pulled the straw back and there were the small grey-green stems still living, she made a sound you've only heard her make once before, a completely unguarded sound of pure pleasure. And then she looked around to see if anyone had heard it, and you had, and you didn't say anything, just nodded. That kind of day. Tomorrow the beds will still need work. The east bed still needs the rest of its compost turned in. The bean poles need taken down before the frost. Martin knows you a rematch at the board game he introduced you to in the spring, which you've been losing consistently for 6 months, and he is frankly, unreasonably smug about it. Tomorrow. But right now the dark is soft and the blanket is warm, and the breathing of the room around you is even and familiar. You close your eyes. The last sounds you hear are the ones you always hear. The small shifts of the house, the owl further now moving away, the mouse somewhere, a distant wind in the willows along the river, the world outside continuing. You are part of it. You always were, even from here, even from inside these walls. The world is very large and you're a small part of it, and that is all right. That is fine. That is exactly what you are, and you breathe out slowly and let the day go. Let the dark be what it is. Let the sounds be distant. Let the hand in the blanket be what it is, this hand that cannot feel what it holds, this hand that holds anyway. Let the breathing of the room carry you. You've worked today. You've eaten. You are warm. That's enough. It has always been enough. In 700 years this place will be gone, reclaimed by the field it came from. No trace but a slight unevenness in the ground that farmers notice and don't mention. The east road will be a different road, wider, harder, full of sounds you cannot imagine. But people will still lie in the dark in October, will still have the sound of other breathing around them, will still have days that were good and days that were hard, and the small dignities of useful work, of known faces, of a fire in the evening, the human body in its darkness trying to rest. It has always tried to rest. Let yours do the same. Sink down, the weight of you into the mattress, the heat of the blanket, the slow regularizing of breath. The thoughts getting quieter now, the way thoughts go at the edge of sleep, one thing slipping into another. Robert's workshop becoming the garden becoming the East Road becoming the horizon you saw from the ledge in the morning, pink and grey and impossibly wide, the birds over the willows, your sister's voice saying your name. Quieter. You've earned this. Take it. You are warm enough. You are here. You are here. Good night.